This information series about Tantra is brought to you by Not a Profit Org, the place on the internet to find spiritual guidance powered by artificial intelligence. Guna, it cannot be said that current explanations give a clear understanding of this subject. Yet such is necessary, both as affording one of the chief keys to Indian philosophy and to the principles which govern sadhana. The term guna is generally translated quality, a word which is only accepted for default of a better, for it must not be overlooked that the three guna, sattva, rajas, and tamas, which are of prakriti, constitute her very substance. This being so, all nature which issues from her, the mahakaranas, varupa, is called trigunatmaka, and is composed of the same guna in different states of relation to one another. The functions of sattva, rajas, and tamas are to reveal, to make active, and to suppress respectively. Rajas is the dynamic, as sattva and tamas are static principles. That is to say, sattva and tamas can neither reveal nor suppress without being first rendered active by rajas. These gunas work by mutual suppression. The unrevealed prakriti avyakta. Prakriti, or divi, is the state of stable equilibrium of these three guna. When this state is disturbed, the manifested universe appears, in every object of which one or other of the three guna is in the ascendant. Thus in Devas, as in those who approach the divya state, sattva predominates and rajas and tamas are very much reduced. That is, their independent manifestation is reduced. They are in one sense still there, for where rajas is not independently active, it is operating on sattva to suppress tamas, which appears or disappears to the extent to which it is, or is not, subject to suppression by the revealing principle. In the ordinary human jiva, considered as a class, tamas is less reduced than in the case of the diva, but very much reduced when comparison is made with the animal jiva. Rajas has great independent activity, and sattva is also considerably active. In the animal creation, sattva has considerably less activity. Rajas has less independent activity than in man, but is much more active than in the vegetable world. Tamas is greatly less preponderant than in the latter. In the vegetable kingdom, tamas is more preponderant than in the case of animals, and both rajas and sattva less so. In the inorganic creation, rajas makes tamas active to suppress both sattva and its own independent activity. It will thus be seen that the upward or revealing movement from the predominance of tamas to that of sattva represents the spiritual progress of the jivatma. Again, as between each member of these classes, one or other of the three guna may be more or less in the ascendant. Thus, in one man as compared with another, the sattva guna may predominate, in which case his temperament is sattvic, or, as the Tantra calls it, divyabhava. In another the rajaguna may prevail, and in the third the tamaguna, in which case the individual is described as rajasic or tamasic, or, to use tantric phraseology, he is said to belong to virabhava, or is a pashu, respectively. Again, the vegetable creation is obviously less tamasic, and more rajasic and sattvic than the mineral, and even amongst these last there may be possibly some which are less tamasic than others. Etymologically, sattva is derived from sat, that which is eternally existent. The eternally existent is also chit, pure intelligence or spirit, and ananda or bliss. In a secondary sense, sat is also used to denote the good, and commonly, though such use obscures the original meaning, the word sattva guna is rendered good quality. It is, however, good, in the sense that it is productive of good and happiness. In such case, however, Stress is laid rather on a necessary quality or effect in the ethical sense of sat than upon its original meaning. In the primary sense, sat is that which reveals. Nature is a revelation of spirit, sat. Where nature is such a revelation of spirit, there it manifests as sattva guna. It is the shining forth from under the veil of the hidden, spiritual substance, sat, and that equality in things which reveals this is sattva guna. So of a pregnant woman it is said that she is antasattva, or instinct with sattva. She in whom sattva as jiva, whose characteristic guna is sattva, is living in an hidden state. But nature not only reveals, but is also a dense covering or veil of spirit, at times so dense that the ignorant fail to discern the spirit which it veils. Where nature is a veil of spirit, there it appears in its quality of tamaguna. In this case the tamaguna is currently spoken of as representative of inertia, because that is the effect of the nature which veils. This quality, again, when translated into the moral sphere, becomes ignorance, sloth, etc. In a third sense, nature is a bridge between spirit, which reveals, and matter, which veils. Where nature is a bridge of descent from spirit to matter, or of ascent from matter to spirit, there it manifests itself as rajaguna. This is generally referred to as the quality of activity, and when transferred to the sphere of feeling, it shows itself as passion. Each thing in nature then contains that in which spirit is manifested or reflected as in a mirror or sattvaguna, that by which spirit is covered, as it were, by a veil of darkness or tamaguna, and that which is the vehicle for the descent into matter or the return to spirit or rajaguna. Thus sattva is the light of nature, as tamas is its shade. Rajas is, as it were, a blended tint oscillating between each of the extremes constituted by the other guna. The object of tantric sadhana is to bring out and make preponderant the sattva guna by the aid of rajas, which operates to make the former guna active. The subtle body, linga sharira, of the jivatma comprises in it buddhi, ahankara, manas, and the 10 senses. This subtle body creates for itself gross bodies suited to the spiritual state of the jivatma. Under the influence of prarabdha karma, buddhi becomes tamasic, rajasic, or sattvic. In the first case, the jivatma assumes inanimate bodies. In the second, active passionate bodies. And in the third, sattvic bodies of varying degrees of spiritual excellence, ranging from man to deva. The gross body is also trigunatmaka. This body conveys impressions to the jivatma through the subtle body and the buddhi in particular. When sattva is made, active impressions of happiness result, and when rajas or tamas are active, the impressions are those of sorrow and delusion. These impressions are the result of the predominance of these respective guna. The action of rajas on sattva produces happiness, as its own independent activity or operation on tamas produce sorrow and delusion respectively. Where sattva or happiness is predominant, their sorrow and delusion are suppressed. Where rajas or sorrow is predominant, their happiness and delusion are suppressed. And where tamas or delusion predominates there, as in the case of the inorganic world, both happiness and sorrow are suppressed. All objects share these 3 states in different proportions. There is, however, always in the jivatma, an admixture of sorrow with happiness, due to the operation of rajas. For happiness, which is the fruit of righteous acts done to attain happiness, is after all only a vikara. The natural state of the jivatma, that is, the state of its own true nature, is that bliss ananda which arises from the pure knowledge of the self, in which both happiness and sorrow are equally objects of indifference. The worldly enjoyment of a person involves pain to self or others. This is the result of the pursuit of happiness, whether by righteous or unrighteous acts. As spiritual progress is made, the gross body becomes more and more refined. In inanimate bodies, karma operates to the production of pure delusion. On the exhaustion of such karma, the jivatma assumes animate bodies for the operation of such forms of karma as lead to sorrow and happiness mixed with delusion. In the vegetable world, sattva is but little active, with a corresponding lack of discrimination, for discrimination is the effect of sattva in Buddhi, and from discrimination arises the recognition of pleasure and pain, conceptions of right and wrong, of the transitory and intransitory, and so forth, which are the fruit of a high degree of discrimination, or of activity of sattva. In the lower animal, sattva in Buddha, I is not sufficiently active to lead to any degree of development of these conceptions. In man, however, the sattva in Buddha, I is considerably active, and in consequence these conceptions are natural in him. For this reason the human birth is, for spiritual purposes, so important. All men, however, are not capable of forming such conceptions in an equal degree. The degree of activity in an individual's Buddha depends on his prarabdha, or karma. However bad such karma may be in any particular case, the individual is yet gifted with that amount of discrimination which, if properly aroused and aided, will enable him to better his spiritual condition by inducing the Rajaguna in him to give more and more activity to the Sattva Guna in his Buddhi. On this account proper guidance and spiritual direction are necessary. A good guru, by reason of his own nature and spiritual attainment and disinterested wisdom, will both mark out for the Sishya the path which is proper for him, and aid him to follow it by the infusion of the tejas which is in the guru himself, whilst sadhana is, as stated, a process for the stimulation of the sattva guna. It is evident that one form of it is not suitable to all. It must be adapted to the spiritual condition of the Sishya, otherwise it will cause injury instead of good. Therefore it is that the adoption of certain forms of sadhana by persons who are not competent adhikari may not only be fruitless of any good result, but may even lead to evils which sadhana as a general principle is designed to prevent. Therefore also is it said that it is better to follow one's own dharma than that, however exalted it be, of another. The world's Loka, this earth, which is the object of the physical senses and of the knowledge based thereon, is but one of 14 worlds or regions placed above and below it, of which, as the sutra says, knowledge may be obtained by meditation on the solar nerve nada sushumna in the meridanda. On this nadi 6 of the upper worlds are threaded, the 7th and highest overhanging it in the Sahasrara Padma, the 1,000-petaled lotus. The sphere of earth Loka, with its continents, their mountains and rivers, and with its oceans, is the 7th or lowest of the upper worlds. Beneath it are the hells and nether worlds, the names of which are given below. Above the terrestrial sphere is Loka, or the atmospheric sphere known as the antariksha, extending from the earth to the sun, in which the siddhas and other celestial beings divyoni of the upper air dwell. From the sun to the pole star, Dhruva is Svarloka, or the heavenly sphere. Heaven, Svarga, is that which delights the mind, as hell, Naraka, is that which gives it pain. In the former is the abode of the Deva and the blessed. These 3 spheres are the region of the consequences of work, and are termed transitory as compared with the 3 highest spheres, and the 4th, which is of a mixed character. When the jiva has received his reward, he is reborn again on earth, for it is not good action, but the knowledge of the Atma which procures liberation, moksha. Above Svarloka is Maharloka, and above it the 3 ascending regions known as the Janarloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka, each inhabited by various forms of celestial intelligence of higher and higher degree. Below the earth and above the nether worlds are the hells commencing with Avicii, and of which, according to popular theology, there are 34, though it is elsewhere said there are as many hells as there are offenses for which particular punishments are meted out. Of these, 6 are known as the great hells. Hinduism, however, even when popular, knows nothing of a hell of eternal torment. To it nothing is eternal but the Brahman. Issuing from the hells, the jiva is again reborn to make its future. Below the hells are the 7 nether worlds, Sutala, Vitala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala, Atala, and Patala, where, according to the Puranas, dwell the Naga serpent divinities, brilliant with jewels, and where, too, the lovely daughters of the Daityas and Danavas wander, fascinating even the most austere. Yet below Patala is the form of Vishnu proceeding from the dark quality, Tamaguna, known as the Sesha serpent or Ananta, bearing the entire world as a diadem, attended by his Shakti Varuni, his own embodied radiance, inhabitants of the worlds. The worlds are inhabited by countless grades of beings, ranging from the highest Devas, of whom there are many classes and degrees, to the lowest animal life. The scale of beings runs from the shining manifestations of spirit to those in which it is so veiled that it would seem almost to have disappeared in its material covering. There is but one light, one spirit, whose manifestations are many. A flame enclosed in a clear glass loses but little of its brilliancy. If we substitute for the glass, paper, or some other more opaque yet transparent substance, the light is dimmer. A covering of metal may be so dense as to exclude from sight the rays of light, which yet burns within with an equal brilliancy. As a fact, all such veiling forms are Maya. They are none the less true for those who live in, and are themselves part of the Maic world. Deva, or heavenly and shining one, for spirit is light and self. Manifestation is applicable to those descending yet high manifestations of the Brahman, such as the 7 Shivas, including the Trinity, Trimurti, Brahma, Vishnu, and Rudra. Divi, again, is the title of the Supreme Mother herself, and is again applied to the manifold forms assumed by the one only Maya, such as Kali, Sarasvati, Lakshmi, Gauri, Gayatri, Sandhya, and others, in the sense also in which it is said, "Verily, in the beginning there was the Brahman, it created the Devas." The latter term also includes lofty intelligencies belonging to the created world, intermediate between Ishvara, himself a Purusha, and man, who in the person of the Brahmana is known as earth divyabhava. These spirits are of varying degrees, for there are no breaks in the creation, which represents an apparent descent of the Brahman in gradually lowered forms. Throughout these forms play the divine currents of pravritti and nivritti, the latter drawing to itself that which the former has sent forth. Deva, Jiva, and Jara inorganic matter are, in their real, as opposed to their phenomenal and illusory, being, the one Brahman, which appears thus to be other than itself through its connection with the upad, he or limiting conditions with which ignorance avidya invests it. Therefore all beings which are the object of worship are each of them but the Brahman seen through the veil of avidya. Though the worshippers of Devas may not know it, their worship is in reality the worship of the Brahman, and hence the Mahanirvana Tantra says that, as all streams flow to the ocean, so the worship given to any Deva is received by the Brahman. On the other hand, those who, knowing this, worship the Devas, do so as manifestations of the Brahman, and thus worship it mediately. The sun, the most glorious symbol in the physical world, is the make vesture of her who is clothed with the sun. In the lower ranks of the celestial hierarchy are the Devayanis, some of whom are mentioned in the opening verses of the first chapter of the text. The Devas are of 2 classes, unborn, ajata, that is, those which have not, and those which have sadhya evolved from humanity, as in the case of King Nahusha, who became Indra. Opposed to the divine hosts are the Asura, Danava, Daitya, Rakshasa, who, with other spirits, represent the tamasik or demonic element in creation. All Devas, from the highest downwards, are subordinate to both time and karma. So it is said, salutation to karma, over which not even vid, high Brahma prevails, namastat karmabhyavad, harapi nayabhya prabhavati. The rendering of the term Deva by a god has led to a misapprehension of Hindu thought. The use of the term angel may also mislead, for though the world of Devas has in some respects analogy to the angelic choirs, the Christian conception of these beings, their origin and functions, does not include, but in fact excludes other ideas connoted by the Sanskrit term. The Pitris, or fathers, are a creation according to some separate from the predecessors of humanity, and are, according to others, the lunar ancestry who are addressed in prayer with the Devas. From Brahma, who is known as the grandfather, Pitamaha of the human race, issued Marichi, Atri, and others, his mental sons, the Agnishvatva, Somnia, Havishmanta, Ashmapa, and other classes of Pitris, numbering, according to the Markandeya Purana 31, Tarpanam or oblation is daily offered to these Pitris. The term is also applied to the human ancestors of the worshipper, generally up to the 7th generation, to whom in Shraddha, the obsequial rites pinda and water are offered with the mantra svadha. The Rishi are seers who know, and by their knowledge are the makers of Shastra and all mantras. The word comes from the root rish rishadi, prap, noti sarvang mantrang jain, aina pashyati sangsara parangva, etc. The 7 great Rishi or Saptarshi of the first Manvantara are Marichi, Atri, Angiras, Pilaha, Kratu, Pulastya, and Vashishtha. In other Manvantara there are other Sapta, Arshi. In the present Manvantara the 7 are Kashyapa Atri, Vashishtha, Vishvamitra, Gautama, Jamadagni, Bharadvaja. To the Rishi the Vedas were revealed. Vyasa taught the Rigveda so revealed to Pala, the Yajurveda to Vaishampayana, the Samaveda to Jaimini, Atharvaveda to Samantu, and Itihasa and Purana to Sudha. The 3 chief classes of Rishi are the Brahm, Arshi, born of the mind of Brahma, the Devarshi of lower rank, and Rajarshi or kings who became Rishis through their knowledge and austerities, such as Janaka, Ritaparna, etc. Thc Shrutarshi are makers of Shastras, as Sushruta. The Kandarshi are of the Karmakanda, such as Jaimini. The Muni, who may be a Rishi, is a sage. Muni is so called on account of his Mananam Mananat Munirachiate. Mananam is that thought, investigation, and discussion which marks the independent thinking mind. First there is Shravanam listening, then Mananam, which is the thinking or understanding, discussion upon, and testing of what is heard as opposed to the mere acceptance on trust of the lower. Intelligence, there too are followed by Nididhyasanam, which is attention and profound meditation on the conclusions, Siddhanta, drawn from what is so heard and reasoned upon. As the Mahabharata says, the Veda differ, and so do the Samriti. No one is a Muni who has no independent opinion of his own Nasau Munirasya Matang Na Binam. The human being is called Jiva, that is the embodied Atma possessed by egoism and of the notion that it directs the Paryashtaka, namely, the 5 organs of action Karmendriya, the 5 organs of perception Jnanendriya, the fourfold, Antakarana or mental self manas, Buddhai, Ahankara, Chitta, the 5 vital airs Prana, the 5 elements Kama desire, Karma action and its results, and Avidya illusion. When these false notions are destroyed, the embodiment is destroyed, and the wearer of the Mayic garment attains nirvana. When the jiva is absorbed in Brahman, there is no longer any jiva remaining as such, Varna. Ordinarily there are 4 chief divisions or castes Varna of Hindu society, viz. Brahmana priesthood, teaching, Kshatriya warrior, Vaishya merchant, Shudra servile, said to have sprung, respectively from the mouth, arm, thigh, and foot of Brahma. A man of the first 3 classes becomes an investiture during the Upanayana ceremony of the sacred thread, twice, born Divija. It is said that by birth one is Shudra, by Sanskara Upanayana Divija twice, born. By study of the Vedas one attains the state of a Vipra, and that he who has knowledge of the Brahman is a Brahmana. Present Tantra, however, speaks of a 5th or hybrid class Samanya resulting from intermixture between the others. It is a peculiarity of Tantra that its worship is largely free of Vedic exclusiveness, whether based on caste, sex, or otherwise. As the Gautamiya Tantra says, the Tantra is for all men of whatever caste, and for all women. Sarva Varnad Hikarashcha Naranang Yogya Eva Cha Ashrama. The 4 stages, conditions, or periods in the life of a Brahman are: first, that of the chaste student or brahmachari; second, the period of secular life as a married householder or grihastha; third, that of the recluse or vanaprastha, when there is retirement from the world; and lastly, that of the beggar or bhikshu, who begs his single daily meal and meditates upon the Supreme Spirit to which he is about to return. For the Kshatriya there are the first 3 ashramas, for the Vaishya the first 2, and for the Shudra the Grihastha ashrama only. This Tantra states that in the Kali age there are only 2 ashrama, the second Garhasthya and the last Bhikshuka or Avidhuta. Neither the conditions of life nor the character, capacity, and powers of the people of this age allow of the first and third. The 2 ashramas prescribed for the Kali age are open to all castes indiscriminately. There are, it is now commonly said, 2 main divisions of Avadhuta, namely Shaivavadhuta and Brahmavadhuta, of each of which there are, again, 3 divisions. Of the first class, the divisions are firstly Shaivavadhuta, who is a Purna, imperfect, though an ascetic. He is also a householder, and like Shiva, hence his name. The second is the wandering stage of the Shaiva, or the Parivrajaka, who has now left the world, and passes his time doing puja, japa, etc., visiting the Tirtha and Pitha, or places of pilgrimage. In this stage, which though higher is still imperfect, the Avadhuta is competent for ordinary sadhana with a Shakti. The third is the perfect stage of a Shaiva. Wearing only the kapina, he renounces all things and all rites, though within certain limits he may practice some yoga, and is permitted to meet the request of a woman who makes it of him. Of the second class, the 3 divisions are firstly the Brahma Vadhuta, who, like the Shaiva Vadhuta, is imperfect, a Purna, and a householder. He is not permitted, however, to have a Shaiva Shakti, and is restricted to a Sviya Shakti. The second class, Brahma Parivrajaka, is similar to the Shaiva of the same class, except that ordinarily he is not permitted to have anything to do with any woman, though he may, under the guidance of his guru, practice yoga accompanied by Shakti. The third, or highest class, Hangsavadhuta, is similar to the third Shaiva degree, except that he must under no circumstances touch a woman or metals, nor may he practice any rites or keep any observances. Correspondence between macrocosm and microcosm. The universe consists of a Mahabrahmanda, or grand cosmos, and of numerous Brihat Brahmanda, or macrocosms evolved from it. As is said by the Nirvana Tantra, all which is in the first is in the second. In the latter are heavenly bodies and beings which are microcosms reflecting on a minor scale the greater worlds which evolve them. As above, so below. This mystical maxim of the West is stated in the Vishvasara Tantra as follows: what is here is elsewhere, what is not here is nowhere. Yadi hasti tedanyatra yani hasti natak fachet. The macrocosm has its meru, or vertebral column, extending from top to bottom. There are 14 regions descending from Satyaloka, the highest. These are the 7 upper and the 7 nether worlds vide ante. The meru of the human body is the spinal column, and within it are the chakra, in which the worlds are said to dwell. In the words of the Shaktananda Tarangini, they are Pindamadhyasthita. Satya has been said to be in the Sahasrara, and Tapa, Jana, Maha, Sva, Bhuva, but the Ajna, Vishuddha, Anahata, Manipura, Svedhisthana, and Muladhara lotuses respectively. Below Muladhara and in the joints, sides, anus, and organs of generation are the nether worlds. The bones near the spinal column are the Kulaparvata. Such are the correspondences as to earth. Then as to water, the nadi are the rivers. The 7 substances of the body, dhatu, are the 7 islands, sweat, tears, and the like are the oceans. Fire exists in the Muladhara, sushumna, navel, and elsewhere. As the worlds are supported by the pravahana and other vayu airs, so is the body supported by the 10 vayu prana, etc. There is the same akasha ether in both. The witness within is the purusha without, for the personal soul of the microcosm corresponds to the cosmic soul, Hiranyagarbha, in macrocosm, the ages, the passage of time within a maha. Yoga influences for the worse man and the world in which he lives. This passage is marked by the 4 ages yuga, called Satya, Treta, Dvapara, and Kali-yuga, the last being that in which it is generally supposed the world now is. The yuga is a fraction of a kalpa, or day of Brahma of 4,320,000 human years. The kalpa is divided into 14 manvantara, which are again subdivided into 70, 1 maha. Yuga, the length of each of which is 4,320,000 human years. The maha yuga great age is itself composed of 4 yuga ages, a satya, b Treta, C. Dvapara, D. Kali. Official science teaches that man appeared on the earth in an imperfect state, from which he has since been gradually, though continually, raising himself. Such teaching is, however, in conflict with the traditions of all peoples, Jew, Babylonian, Egyptian, Hindu, Greek, Roman, and Christian, which speak of an age when man was both innocent and happy. From this state of primal perfection he fell, continuing his descent until such time as the great Avatara, Christ and others, descended to save his race and enable it to regain the righteous path. The Garden of Eden is the emblem of the paradisiacal body of man. There man was one with nature. He was himself paradise, a privileged enclosure in a garden of delight gan be Eden. Et eruditus est mois omni sapiential. Egyptium, the Satyaloka is, according to Hindu belief, the golden age of righteousness, free of sin, marked by longevity, physical strength, beauty, and stature. There were giants in those days, whose moral, mental, and physical strength enabled them to undergo long brahmacharya continence and tapas austerities. Longevity permitted lengthy spiritual exercises. Life then depended on marrow and lasted a lac of years, men dying when they willed. Their stature was 21 cubits. To this age belonged the avatara or incarnations of Vishnu, Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Narasimha, and Vamana. Its duration is computed to be 4,800 divine years, which, when multiplied by 360, a year of the Devas being equal to 360 human years, are the equivalent of 1,728,000 of the years of man. B. The second age, or Treta 3, fourth Yuga, is that in which righteousness dharma decreased by 1/4. The duration was 3,600 divine years, or 1,296,000 human years. Longevity, strength, and stature decreased. Life was in the bone and lasted 10,000 years. Man's stature was 14 cubits. Of sin there appeared 1/4, and of virtue there remained 3/4. Men were still attached to piety and charitable acts, penances, sacrifice, and pilgrimage, of which the chief was that to Naimisharanya. In this period appeared the avatars of Vishnu as Parashurama and Rama. See the third, Divyabhava 1/2 Yuga, is that in which righteousness decreased by 1/2, and the duration of which was 2,400 divine, or 864,000 human years. A further decrease in longevity and strength, and increase of weakness and disease marked this age. Life, which lasted 1,000 years, was scented in the blood. Stature was 7 cubits. Sin and virtue were of equal force. Men became restless, and though eager to acquire knowledge, were deceitful, and followed both good and useful pursuits. The principal place of pilgrimage was Kurukshetra. To this age belongs, according to Vyasa, Anishtabhacharya, and Jayadeva, the avatara of Vishnu as Balarama, the elder brother of Krishna, who, according to other accounts, takes his place. In the Sandhya, or intervening period of 1,000 years between this and the next Yuga, the Tantra was revealed, as it will be revealed at the dawn of every Kali-yuga. Kali-yuga is the alleged present age, in which righteousness exists to the extent of 1/4 only, the duration of which is 1,200 divine, or 432,000 human years. According to some, this age commenced in 3120 B.C., on the date of Vishnu's return to heaven after the 8th incarnation. This is the period which, according to the Puranas and Tantras, is characterized by the prevalence of viciousness, weakness, disease, and the general decline of all that is good. Human life, which lasts at most 120, or as some say 100 years, is dependent on food. Stature is 3½ cubits. The chief pilgrimage is now to the Ganges. In this age has appeared the Buddha Avatara. The last, or Kalki Avatara, destroyer of sin, has yet to come. It is he who will destroy iniquity and restore the age of righteousness. The Kalki Purana speaks of him as one whose body is blue like that of the rain charge cloud, who with sword in hand rides, as does the rider of the Apocalypse, a white horse, swift as the wind, the cherisher of the people, destroyer of the race of the Kali-yuga, the source of truth. Religion, and Jayadeva, in his Ode to the Incarnations, addresses him thus: For the destruction of all the impure, thou drawst thy scimitar like a blazing comet. O how tremendous, O Keshava, assuming the body of Kalki, be victorious, O Hari, Lord of the universe. With the Satya Yuga, a new Maha Yaga will commence, and the ages will continue to revolve with their rising and descending races until the close of the Kalpa, or day of Brahma. Then a night of dissolution, pralaya of equal duration, follows, the Lord reposing in Idra Yoga, sleep in pralaya on the serpent Shesha, the endless one, till day break, when the universe is created anew, and the next Kalpa follows, the scriptures of the ages. Each of these ages has its appropriate shastra or scripture, designed to meet the characteristics and needs of the men who live in them. The Hindu shastra are classed into Shruti, which commonly includes the four Veda, Rik, Yajur, Sama, Atharva, and the Upanishads, the doctrine of which is philosophically exposed in the Vedanta Darshana. Smriti, such as the Dharma Shastra of Manu and other works on family and social duty, prescribing for Pavriti, Damya, as the Upanishads had revealed the Nivritti, Dharma. The Puranas, of which, according to the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, there were originally 4 lakhs, and of which 18 are now regarded as the principal. The Tantra, for each of these ages a suitable shastra is given. Veda is the root of all shastra, Mula Shastra. All others are based on it. The Tantra is spoken of as a 5th Veda. Kalukabada, the celebrated commentator on Manu, says that Shruti is of 2 kinds, Vedic and Tantric Vediki. Tantriki Cheva Divyavid, Ashruta Kirtita. The various shastras, however, are different presentments of Shruti appropriate to the humanity of the age for which they are given. Thus the Tantra is that presentment of Shruti which is modeled as regards its ritual to meet the characteristics and infirmities of the Kali-yuga, as men have no longer the capacity, longevity, and moral strength necessary for the application of the Vedika Karmakanda. The Tantra prescribes a special sadhana, or means or practice of its own, for the attainment of that which is the ultimate and common end of all Shastra. The Kularnava Tantra says that in the Satya or Krita age, the Shastra is Shruti in the sense of the Veda and Upanishads, in Treta Yuga, Smriti in the sense of the Dharma Shastra and Shruti, Jivika, etc. In Dvapara Yuga the Purana, and in the last or Kali Yuga the Tantra, which should now be followed by all orthodox Hindu worshippers. The Mahanirvana and other tantras and tantric works lay down the same rule. The Tantra is also said to contain the very core of the Veda, to which it is described to bear the relation of the Paramatma to the Jivatma. In a similar way, Kalachara is the central informing life of the gross body called Vedachara. Each of the Achara which follow it up to Kalachara being more and more subtle sheaths. The human body. The human body is Brahmapara, the city of Brahman. Ishvara himself enters into the universe as Jiva. Wherefore the Mahavakya, that thou art, means that the ego which is regarded as Jiva only from the standpoint of a new pad, he is Brahman. The 5 sheaths. In the body there are 5 kosha or sheaths, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and Andamaya, or the physical and vital bodies. The 2 mental bodies and the body of bliss. In the first the Lord is self, conscious as being dark or fair, short or tall, old or youthful. In the vital body he feels alive, hungry, and thirsty. In the mental bodies he thinks and understands, and in the body of bliss he resides in happiness. Thus garmented with the 5 garments, the Lord, though all-pervading, appears as though he were limited by them. Annamaya kosha. In the material body, which is called the sheath of food, Annamaya kosha, reign the elements earth, water, and fire, which are those presiding in the lowest chakra, Muladhara, Svadhisthana, and Mani. Pura centers. The 2 former produce food and drink, which is assimilated by the fire of digestion and converted into the body of food. The Indriya are both faculty and organs of sense. There are in this body the material organs, as distinguished from the faculty of sense. In the gross body, sharir, or kosha, there are 6 external kosha, viz., hair, blood, flesh, which come from the mother, and bone, muscle, marrow from the father. The organs of sense, indriya, are of 2 kinds, viz., Jnanendriya, or organs of sensation, through which knowledge of external world is obtained, ear, skin, eyes, tongue, nose, and Karmendriya, or organs of action, mouth, arms, legs, anus, penis, the functions of which are speech, holding, walking, excretion, and procreation. Pranamaya kosha. The second sheath is the pranamaya kosha, or sheath of a breath, prana, which manifests itself in air and ether, the presiding elements in the anahata and vishuddha chakra. There are 10 vayu airs, or inner vital forces, of which the first 5 are the principal, namely, the sapphire prana, apana, the color of an evening cloud, the silver vayana, udana, color of fire, and the milky semana. These are all aspects of the action of the one pranadevata. Kundalini is the mother of prana, which she, the mula, prakriti, illumined by the light of the Supreme. Atma generates. Prana is vayu, or the universal force of activity, divided on entering each individual into fivefold function. Specifically considered, prana is inspiration, which with expiration is from and to a distance of 8 and 12 inches respectively. Udana is the ascending vayu. Apana is the downward vayu, expelling wind, excrement, urine, and semen. The samana, or collective vayu, kindles the bodily fire, conducting equally the food, etc., throughout the body. Vayana is the separate vayu, affecting division and diffusion. These forces cause respiration, excretion, digestion, circulation. Manomaya, Vijnana kosha, and Anandamaya kosha. The next two sheaths are the Manomaya and Vijnana kosha. These constitute the antahkarana, which is fourfold, namely, mind in its twofold aspect of buddhi and manas, self, hood, ahankara, and chitta. The function of the first is doubt, sankalpa, vikalpatmaka, uncertainty, certainty, of the second. Determination, nishchayakarini, of the third, egoity, consciousness, abhamana. Manas automatically registers the facts which the senses perceive. Buddhi, on attending to such registration, discriminates, determines, and cognizes the object registered, which is set over and against the subjective self by ahankara. The function of chitta is contemplation chinta, the faculty whereby the mind in its widest sense raises for itself the subject of its thought and dwells thereon. For whilst buddhi has but 3 moments in which it is born, exists, and dies, chitta endures. Antahkarana is master of the 10 senses, which are the outer doors through which it looks forth upon the external world. The faculties, as opposed to the organs or instruments of sense, reside here. The centers of the powers inherent in the last 2 sheaths are in the Ajna chakra, and the region above this and below the Sahasrara lotus. In the latter, the Atma of the last sheath of bliss resides. The physical or gross body is called Astila Sharira. The subtle body, Sakshma Sharira, also called Linga Sharira and Karana Shanra, comprises the 10 indriya, manas, ahankara, buddhi, and the 5 functions of prana. This subtle body contains in itself the cause of rebirth into the gross body when the period of reincarnation arrives. The Atma, by its association with the Upad, has 3 states of consciousness, namely the Jagrat, or waking state, when through the sense organs are perceived objects of sense through the operation of manas and buddhi. It is explained in Ishvara Pratyabhena as follows. The waking state, dear to all, is the source of external action through the activity of the senses. The jiva is called Jagari, that is, he who takes upon himself gross body called Vishva. The second is Svapna, the dream state. When the sense organs being withdrawn, Alma is conscious of mental images generated by the impressions of Jagrat experience. Here, Manas ceases to record fresh sense impressions, and it and Buddh, I work on that which Manas has registered in the waking state. The explanation of this state is also given in the work last cited. The state of Svapna is the objectification of visions perceived in the mind due to the perception of ideas there latent. Jiva in the state of Svapna is termed Tejasa. Its individuality is merged in the subtle body. Hiranyagarbha is the collective form of these jiva, as Vaisvanara is such form of the jiva in the waking state. The third state is that of Sushupti, or dreamless sleep, when mana itself is withdrawn, and buddhi, dominated by tamas, preserves only the notion, happily I slept, I was not conscious of anything. Patanjala Yoga Sutra, in the macrocosm the Upad, he of these states, are also called Virat, Hiranyagarbha, and Avyakta. The description of the state of sleep is given in the Shiva Sutra as that in which there is incapacity of discrimination or illusion. By the saying, cited from the Patanjala Sutra, 3 modifications of avidya are indicated, viz. Ignorance, egoism, and happiness. Sound sleep is that state in which these 3 exist. The person in that state is termed prajna, his individuality being merged in the causal body, karana. Since in the sleeping state the prajna becomes Brahman, he is no longer jiva as before, but the jiva is then not the supreme one Paramatma, because the state is associated with avidya. Hence, because the vehicle in the jiva in the sleeping state is karana, the vehicle of the jiva in the fourth is declared to be mahakarana. Ishvara is the collective form of the prajna jiva. Beyond Sushupti is the Turiya, and beyond Turiya the transcendent 5th state without name. In the 4th state, Shadavidya is acquired, and this is the only realistic one for the yogi which he attains through samad, yoga. Jiva and turiya is merged in the great causal body Mahakarana. The fifth state arises from firmness in the fourth. He who is in this state becomes equal to Shiva, or more strictly, tends to a close equality, for it is only beyond that the spotless one attains the highest equality, which is unity, hence even. In the fourth and fifth states there is an absence of that full perfection which constitutes the supreme. Bhaskara, in his commentary on the Lalita, when pointing out that the tantric theory adds the fourth and fifth states to the first three adopted by the followers of the Upanishads, says that the latter states are not separately enumerated by them owing to the absence in those two states of the full perfection of Jiva or of Shiva, nadi. It is said that there are 3.5 crores of nadi in the human body, of which some are gross and some are subtle. Nadi means a nerve or artery in the ordinary sense, but all the nadis of which the books on yoga speak are not of this physical character, but are subtle channels of energy. Of these nadi, the principal are 14, and of these 14, Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna are the chief. And again of these three Sushumna is the greatest, and to it all others are subordinate. Sushumna is in the hollow of the Meru and cerebro-spinal axis. It extends from the Muladhara lotus, the Tattvic earth center, to the cerebral region. Sushumna is in the form of fire, Vani, Svarupa, and has within it the Vajreen, Inadi, in the form of the sun, Sirius, Varupa. Within the latter is the pale nectar, dropping Chitra or Chitrani. Nadi, which is also called Brahman, Nadi, in the form of the moon, Chandras, Varupa. Sushumna is thus Triguna. The various lotuses in the different chakra of the body vide post are all suspended from the Chitran, Adi, the chakra being described as knots in the Nadi, which is as thin as the 1,000th part of a hair. Outside the Meru and on each side of Sushumna are the Nadi Ida and Pingala. Ida is on the left side, and coiling round Sushumna, has its exit in the left nostril. Pingala is on right, and similarly coiling, enters the right nostril. The Sushumna, interlacing Ida and Pingala and the Ajna chakra round which they pass, thus forms a representation of the caduceus of Mercury. Ida is of a pale color, is moon, like Chandras, Varupa, and contains nectar. Pingala is red and is sun, like Sirius, Varupa, containing venom, the fluid of mortality. These three rivers, which are united at the Ajna chakra, flow separately from that point, and for this reason the Ajna chakra is called Mukta Triveni. The Muladhara is called Yukta United Triveni, since it is the meeting place of the three Nadi, which are also called Ganga Ida, Yamuna Pingala, and Sarasvati Sushumna, after the three sacred rivers of India. The opening at the end of the Sushumna in the Muladhara is called Brahmad Ivara, which is closed by the coils of the sleeping Divi Kundalini chakra. There are 6 chakra, or dynamic tattvic centers in the body, viz. the Muladhara, Svadhisthana, Mani, Pura, Anahata, Vishuddha, and Ajna, which are described in the following notes. Over all there is the 1,000, petaled lotus, Sahasrara Padma. Muladhara. Muladhara is a triangular space in the midmost portion of the body with the apex turned downwards like a young girl's yoni. It is described as a red lotus of 4 petals, situate between the base of the sexual organ and the anus. Earth, evolved from a water, is the tattva of this chakra. On the 4 petals are the 4 golden varnas of Ang, Shang, Shang, and Asang. In the 4 petals pointed towards the 4 directions Ishana, etc., are the 4 forms of bliss: Yogananda, yoga bliss; Paramananda, supreme bliss; Samajananda, natural bliss; and Virananda, vira bliss. In the center of this lotus is Svayambhulinga, ruddy brown, like the color of a young leaf, Chitrani. Nadi is figured as a tube, and the opening at its end at the base of the linga is called the door of Brahman Brahmad, Ivara, through which the Divi ascends. The lotus, Linga and Brahmad, Ivara, hang downwards. The Divi Kundalini, more subtle than the fiber of the lotus and luminous as lightning, lies asleep, coiled like a serpent around the linga, and closes with her body the door of Brahman. The Divi has forms in the Brahmanda. Her subtlest form in the Pendanda, or body, is called Kundalini, a form of Prakriti pervading, supporting, and expressed in the form of the whole universe. The glittering dancer, as the Sarada Telaka calls her, in the lotus, like head of the yogi. When awakened, it is she who gives birth to the world made of mantra, a red fiery Triangle surrounds Svayambhulinga, and within the triangle is the red kandar, Vayu, or air of Kama, a form of the Apana Vayu, for here is the seat of creative desire. Outside the triangle is a yellow square, called the Prithvi earth mandala, to which is attached the 8 thunders, Ashtavajra. Here is the Vija Lang, and with it Prithvi on the back of an elephant. Here also are Brahma and Savitri, and the red 4-handed Shakti Dakini, Svadhisthana. Svadhisthana is a 6-petaled lotus at the base of the sexual organ, above Muladhara and below the navel. Its pericarp is red, and its petals are like lightning. Water, evolved from a fire, is the tattva of this chakra. The varnas on the petals are a bang, bang, mang, yong, rang, and a lang. In the 6 petals are also the vritti states, qualities, functions, or inclinations, namely, prashraya, credulity, devish vasa, suspicion, mistrust, avajna, disdain, murchtha, delusion, or as some say, disinclination. Sarvanasha, false knowledge, and krurata, pitilessness. Within a semicircular space in the pericarp are the Devata, the dark blue Mahavishnu, Mahalakshmi, and Sarasvati. In front is the blue 4-handed Rakini Shakti and the Vija of Varuna, Lord of Water or Vang. Inside the Vija there is the region of Varuna, of the shape of an half moon, and in it is Varuna himself seated on a white alligator. Makara Mani, Pura Mani. Parachakra is a 10-petaled golden lotus, situate above the last in the region of the navel. Fire, evolved from air, is the tattva of this chakra. The 10 petals are of the color of a cloud, and on them are the blue varnas a dang, di, hang, nang, tang, thang, dang, dihang, nang, pang, thang, and the 10 vritti vide anti, namely, laja shame, pishanada fickleness, ursha jealousy, trishna desire, sashapti laziness, vishada sadness, kashaya dullness, moha ignorance, hrina aversion, disgust, baya fear. Within the pericarp is the Vija of fire, Rang, and a triangular figure, mandala, of Agni, Lord of Fire, to each side of which figure are attached 3 auspicious signs, or svastika. Agni, red 4-handed and seated on a ram, is within the figure. In front of him are Rudra and his Shakti Bhadra, Kali. Rudra is of the color of vermilion, and is old. His body is smeared with ashes. He has 3 eyes and 2 hands. With one of these he makes the sign which grants boons and blessings, and with the other that which dispels fear. Near him is the 4-armed Lakini Shakti, of the color of molten gold Tapta, Kanchana, wearing yellow raiments and ornaments. Her mind is maddened with passion, Mada, Adichitta. Above the lotus is the abode and region of Surya. The solar region drinks the nectar, which drops from the region of the moon.